Oh, hello, yes. Well, beginnings of a new week. Oh, yes, indeed. I have to state it that the long hot summer is definitely passing me by. No matter how much I get done, I always feel that I've let myself down by not getting enough done. Still, never mind, still got a couple of weeks to go, so I'll need to get out there on their mean, dangerous streets, yes. Now, for some reason or other, which we might will come on to in a short while, Bournemouth, yeah, the jewel in Dorset's crown, said nobody ever, has been getting a lot of attention in the British media. As a crime hotspot, or not, as the case may be. And yesterday, as promised, I had a look at the new culture forums. Hi, I'm Peter Whittle, who had a special report all the way from, well, sunny Bournemouth. And well, just to go through it very roughly for you so you don't have to, although inevitably there is a link down below just in case you want to query anything I might have to say. Oh yes. We start off with the inevitable idyllic 1960s travelogue, because everybody knows that everything was brilliant in the 1960s. Certainly Peter does, because he's about the same age as me and his mum looked after him then, so everything was perfect. Now, admittedly, things were, generally speaking, better in the 1960s in terms of economic indicators, and we can have a long argument about whether or not neoliberalism has done us proud. Peter would disagree with me on that one, but that's fine. Peter makes the classic thing that he seems to like to do of thinking that a generation is 60 years. It isn't, Peter. It's 30, mate, okay? So each generation is 30 years because that's averagely when people tend to have kids. But anyway, apparently, according to Peter, a generation ago in the 1960s, it was just brilliant in Bournemouth and everyone was white and everything was happy. So anyway, he went into the town and he sort of wandered around the seafront for about 5 minutes, quoting off a whole bunch of statistics, which oddly all of them were about brown people and the dreadful things that they were doing in the town. Thing is, if you watch this, you'll notice that the people in the background are almost uniformly white. I mean, just a sort of cursory glance that I had looked through, I think it's at about 95%, which kind of belays the whole evilness of what's going on, because there are loads of people just paddling a typical British summer in a reasonably rundown seaside town. He makes the mistake of trying to compare the 2001 with the 2021 census because that suits his figures, and the notion of white British in 2001 was different from the notion of white British in 2021. Still, it kind of fits neatly if you want to make a particular point, which of course Peter does. And yeah, here again the classic foreign-born thing. And we must remember, of course, that foreign-born kids includes, well, Boris Johnson's kids, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, what Peter then does a bit later on is he interviews a couple of, well, 3 people in town, a woman who says she's not very safe, and 2 blokes that make me look very young who say they don't feel safe. I guess all 3 of those have been recruited from New Culture Forum's local area groups, because there's a few of those out and about now, and I'm a member of my own one, so I get to see everything that they post online, which is always interesting, but we're not going to talk about that today much. Anyway, yes, but the centre of all this is the very recent news that there's going to be a brilliantly a new safeguarding force. Okay, the Safeguard Force. Yes, it's been set up by a local businessman in town, and these fine stout patriots are going to wander around town and make sure that the people, whoever they may be, are not going to cause any trouble. The problem, of course, with this is the police and other emergency services, and indeed pretty much anyone with a brain, is going to find the idea of people, self-appointed people, wandering around town as moral guardians of being a bit iffy. And sure enough it is. There were some anti-migrant demos, sort of anti-hotel demos recently when the force came out, and were seen very much mingling with the stout patriots, drinking beer on the beach whilst wearing Union Jack shirts. I don't know about you, but that would be enough to make me feel unsafe one way or another. It does also transpire that the bloke what set up the group has a long history, perhaps inevitably, of posting some pretty obnoxious things online, which are also, cough cough, a little bit racist. Can we say that? Yeah, of course we can. We can say that, can't we? Because they are. Right, so you have these people who say that they're going to be trained, whatever that means, and that they'll all be DRB'd. Yes, to Disclosure and Barring Service, for those of you that don't know, which means that they will officially not have a long history of violence, especially against sexual assault against children. The problem with that is if this group has indeed only just been set up in August, then their DRBs for any new ones with needing DRBs won't have come through yet, because that generally takes 6 weeks. So I'm not entirely sure. For obvious reasons. The notion that we should have groups of concerned citizens who will decide to intervene as they see fit is a very dubious one, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be very long before one of these individuals decides to do something and it creates a hell of a fuss, which I have the feeling is part of the point, because of course Peter Whittle is based in Tufton Street, and the fact that these new stories are starting to come out about Bournemouth kind of suggests that someone has decided to pay an interest in it. Now Peter and the rest of them in Tufton Street would have you believe that all of the think tanks that are in there completely live in self-contained units and they never talk to each other or do anything else, despite the fact that it's an incredibly small group of people that we're really dealing with here, a bit like the New Culture Forum themselves. If you look at the wider stuff about statistics, yes, it's true that Bournemouth does have a much higher crime rate than the rest of Dorset. But it's Dorset, right? It's Dorset. It's fields and trees. You would expect that. And, drum roll, going back to the economics, as we indeed have to, there are multitudinous of these seaside towns who have found themselves washed up high and dry. They did indeed, still manage to be economically viable in the 1960s, when still a lot of people in the days before mass transport abroad were able to, take British holidays. But since then, you end up with enormously large numbers of basically empty hotels and a stagnant economy outside of about 2 months in the summer. So, of course, they end up with loads and loads of people staying in those places who aren't necessarily the world's most savoury types, if I can put it as gently as that. If you look at other seaside towns, if you look at them on the south coast a bit further along, places like Hastings, they were used as dumping grounds for community care, cough cough, in the 1980s under Thatcher. And it's kind of carried on with that. Yeah? You can go to almost any of them. Go to Grimsby, go to Yarmouth, go to Clapton, reform strongholds, all of them, right? Yeah? And they're all suffering from exactly the same sort of economic problems that there are. The moment you get outside of the London, sort of 50 miles tops, and even then, you have to sort of try and squeeze in Hastings to that, and it's a very run-down town still, then all of these places are struggling enormously, and they will be struggling economically, which is going to cause crime, because that's kind of the nature of those things. Now, you can blame that on brown people if you want to, by all means, but basically because you're the type of person that will blame it on brown people, like Peter Whittle. That's his job now, is to blame things on brown people. Yes. But what's the end game here exactly? What is it exactly? Well, it's that idea that somehow the laws and the police are just slack, and we just need these extra big special laws to make us, whoever that is, feel safe. Yeah? I appreciate that lots and lots of people my age don't feel safe, but that's because they don't go out much. I'm sorry, they don't go out much. I officially live in a high crime part of the city I live in. And I go out a lot. And honestly, in the 10 odd years that I've lived in this particular address, I can't say I've noticed any. I have received exactly no crimes against my person whatsoever. I've had a couple of run-ins with local kids that I've had to have a chat with. That's been about it. Now, those are different things. That isn't a high crime neighbourhood. I'm sorry. If you feel threatened, it's because you feel threatened for the most part. And the older you get, the harder it is for you to deal with that. And with the media kicking up a storm about how dangerous it is, your senses are going to be very, very heightened. But you're not going to make yourself feel safer by having extra laws. There are plenty enough already to keep you safe. Don't need any more. But that's generically what the push is. And of course, it's not a push for more laws necessarily, or more targeted laws, but a kind of thing that the people like me are a bit of a problem. Because if I was to go to Bournemouth and there was groups of people draped in polyester Union Jack flags drinking beer and the safeguard force was amongst them, I would walk swiftly the other way, because I don't think those people would be very keen on me. Yeah, this isn't about my safety, or indeed realistically other people's safety. This is about something else entirely, and it's about that deeper idea of a kind of regime change that we're starting to get into in this country. The way that the media, bought and paid for as they are by big business interests, want us to be thinking in a very particular way, and it doesn't necessarily match any particular need on the ground. If you really want to get places like Bournemouth going again, then have a vibrant economy. Pump money into the local economy. It can be done. It can be done. Make those places viable again, and crime will fall. Simple as that, right? It's simple as that. If you go to Grimsby, I was in Grimsby a few months ago, right? If you go to Grimsby, speak to people in Grimsby about what's needed in the town. Okay, it isn't vigilantes. No, they need money in the town. They need local people to be at work. And the only way you can do that is to pump prime a local economy. And none of our political parties are interested in doing it. Because, of course, we just simply need tax cuts for the rich. After all, that money will trickle down. 45 years and counting. Yeah, Grimsby just needs to hang on for a bit longer, and everything will be fine. Just like in Bournemouth, everything will be fine. And if it isn't, well, just blame brown people. That's nice, isn't it? We just carry along, extracting wealth out of the town. But you have to say, where's the money going? Anyway, do have a lovely one if you can do, and remember, if you are in Bournemouth, it's a good chance that you might be murdered by somebody who's actually white. That's kind of the way those statistics go. Links down below if you want to have a look at this stuff for yourself. Please do. If you want to pick something out that I've spoken and you feel that it's wrong, by all means put it in the comments. I don't care. You're wrong anyway. Do have a lovely day. If you can do have an enjoyable start to the week. And whatever you do, don't quote Paul Weller lyrics. Yeah, I used to really like the Jam, but nah, not anymore.